let's do it. Welcome to Living, Breathing, and Having a Good Time. I'm your host, Sierra Cooper, and today we have a special guest, Brian Melancon. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Doing great. How are you today?
Did I say your last name correct?
You
Because I
did.
want to make sure that because when I first read it, I was like, I hope I say this correctly.
Yeah, it's
So
Malasol.
well, I saw. Okay. So Brian has a very extensive background in physical fitness, nutrition. He's going to explain to us today about his very large clientele base that he has pretty much all over the world from compet competition, bodybuilding competition, competitors. You've been a previous competitor, I take it as well, for X
Many, many
amount of
years
time.
ago. Many
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, and so I like you to give us a little bit of a recap on, how you found this, what got you into it, were you an athlete, where are you from, etc.
Sure. So, born and raised in Louisiana. How I came about in the fitness industry and how I really developed a name for myself is pretty interesting story. So, probably 15 years ago, I was working at Anytime Fitness as a personal trainer, and I had moved
Mhm.
out to Baton Rouge to take a job for a lead PT role. And
Mhm.
also at the time, I was in school as a kinesiology major because my first love, even before nutrition, was exercise science.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really just developed a love for science through honestly, I don't know where my love for science came from. It just always made a lot more sense to me than other subjects. But I always tell people like I find God in science.
Yeah.
It's so complex and it's so beautiful. And so I was originally a kinesiology major, and then I started getting really into nutritional sciences and natural bodybuilding at the time because it was amazing what some of these natural competitors were
It
doing
is.
where they were able to do with their physique without enhancement. And so I started following this guy named Lane Norton, who was really big in the industry, still very big in the industry, but at the time
Mhm.
he was, one of the biggest names. And he was working on his PhD in nutritional sciences, specifically leucine metabolism at the time. And so I was following Lane and studying his stuff, and then I just started studying nutritional sciences on my own while also pursuing my degree in kinesiology. Um, and I somehow was able to convince my boss at the time to let me to prep him for a bodybuilding show and try out all
So much fun.
this new
Yeah.
fun science I was learning. And so prepped him. He ended up winning his class, came in amazing condition. The guy who he beat, I ended up prepping for his next show. And then that guy went on to win just a ton of shows. And then more and more local people started following me and asking me to prep them. And at that time, I was still just training at Anytime Fitness and had no intention of starting my own company. Like this was just for fun at the time. Like it was just, hey, like let's see what we can do to these physiques. And
Sure.
Lane ended up reaching out to me actually, and because he saw how conditioned my clients were coming in, he liked that I took a science-based approach, and we had met at a nutritional conference a couple weeks prior. Um, and timeline's a little jumbled up, but it ended
Hmm.
up meeting Lane in person at a nutrition seminar. But anyway, he ended up reaching out to me asking if I wanted to be on his preferred coaches list because he had too many client inquiries at the time. And I said, absolutely. And then Lane ended up doing a video on metabolic adaptation that ended up getting like 500,000 views or something. And he actually mentioned me by name at the end of his video. And that's where business just really grew for me. Nationally and then internationally. So I actually grew faster nationwide than I even did locally because of that big shout out from Lane Norton. So I always have to give Lane props, because
Oh,
he,
absolutely.
he
Because he's been in the industry for 30 plus years. I mean, for a
yeah,
long time.
yeah, and just him putting me on his referred coaches list and then mentioning me on YouTube. I mean, it really launched change the trajectory of my life. And so from there, I started getting so many client inquiries that I ended up
Mhm.
leaving my role at Anytime Fitness and starting my own company, which I call C620 Nutrition. And the C620, people are always like, what does that mean? So it's actually for 1 Corinthians 6:20. You are bought at a price, therefore honor God with your body.
I
Uh,
love
I
that.
started my own company, and it's been beautiful. It's been about 15 years since then, and I've been blessed to have trained thousands of people all over the world, and it's opened a lot of doors. It's created opportunities in my life, and so I'm very thankful.
So let me ask you a question because a lot of viewers have backgrounds as athletes, or maybe they've competed, or they listen to various ACE certified trainers or NASM certified trainers, and explain to them about the in-depth difference between just personal training and then kinesio work. Because I think for a lot of people, what they fail to understand is that personal training is extensive. It can be, depending upon the person. But with your background, you dove into so much more, and there's more complexity because me as a woman, I'm 38 years old, and for a lot of women, that either experience hormonal issues or try to lose weight or try to stay fit and keep their body balanced amongst men that also go through hormone issues. Explain to them why, just going on diet fads that they hear of it isn't lining up with their goals. Because, I get patients in my clinic all the time that are always complaining about how they're not losing weight or not doing this or not doing that. And people starve themselves too. And so explain to people what it is. That's a lot of questions in one. The difference with women and men, number one, how age and hormones affect your training, and the science-based nutrition that counteracts nutritional fads that are just out there.
Okay, so you may have to remind me of some of those questions.
Yeah.
Now you said, let's talk about the difference between men and women. Well,
Yep.
my answer in 2025 may not be too popular, but there is a difference between
Yes,
men and women.
there is. Yes, there is. Oh my gosh, I know.
There's two genders, male and female.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the foundation of that question really lies in probably the frustration that a lot of women have that their spouse or significant other or men they know in their life seem to lose weight a lot easier than women. And so if we take a step back and really analyze what's going on, there's a biological reason, and then there's kind of a quote unquote like common sense reason. Muscle is what's called metabolically active, where it takes calories to maintain contractile tissue. Okay. Men, by and large, are just bigger than women. So they have a higher daily burn rate than women.
We would hope so.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, me at someone at 240 is going to burn so many more calories than, someone else, like a female at 140. Like we're literally talking about me carrying around 100 pounds more mass than they do. So even
Exactly.
in that, even though some's muscle, some's fat, some's bone, fluid, all that kind of stuff, that is still, if we're sticking with this 240, 140 analogy, that is still 100 pounds that I am having to carry around on a daily basis. That's different than a woman. And that is highly, highly metabolic active tissue, but also the workload. I mean, can you imagine if I put a 100-pound vest on you and asked you just to, can you imagine your daily burn rate? It's like you would drop body fat so fast, just because the amount of work is different. And also too,
Yes.
and again, back to the original point is men just typically, by and large, have a lot more muscle mass than women do.
Mhm.
Also, too, women, y'all were designed to be the species that is responsible for carrying life. Y'all need more body fat than men do. Like, for example, essential body fat, meaning like what is you need to just survive on for a man is 4 or 5%. And that's not healthy. That just means you can survive there, So when we like peak for a bodybuilding show, they'll get to, depending on the division, 5 to 7% body fat. And that is extremely lean. And most people can't sustain that, but that's what's called essential body fat. For women, essential body fat is, around the 14% range. So, double for most, and that is because y'all are just required to carry more body weight to be able to sustain life. And when women typically get that lean, especially for a contest, they'll notice things like their period goes away. There can be some other health benefits that are negative with getting that lean. A lot to do with hormones, thyroid function, hair thinning, nails getting brittle. So getting contest lean, and that's why it's called peaking. So, it's called peaking for a show because you get there just for show and then you get back into healthy range, staying that lean and what we see all over social media as, this idea of perceived beauty and what women should look like year round is just not sustainable, and it's not even
Yeah.
healthy for most.
No, it's not. No, not at all. And I just want to make this clear too, because I have a lot of bodybuilding friends. They check in on their endocrine systems quite often when, they're going to do a show. So between someone that's 65 pounds overweight and wanting to up their metabolism compared to a bodybuilder whose metabolism is always going and they're fluctuating. What would you say to women when they see the carnivore diet, they see the plant-based vegan diet, they go with so many different diet fads that are out there? What would you say to them that they need to concentrate on, and men as well?
So yeah, so I want to touch on something real quick is I think people have a skewed view of metabolism. Everyone's metabolism is always active, and people talk about like increasing their metabolism, increasing their metabolic capacity. I always say this all the time. The fastest way to increase your metabolism is simply to move more, because that is metabolically active. So, if you want to increase your metabolism, move more, and then you can actually start to increase your food because your lifestyle will actually support the food habits. And so that's like a twofold way to increase like metabolic capacity. But everyone has metabolism. And metabolism is largely based on the amount of skeletal muscle you have and the amount of movement you do. So those are two ways to increase your metabolic activity. Super, super effective, like not even directly, referring to food. So specifically like for women, because we do see so many diets cycle in and cycle out of the fitness industry, it's either vegan, carnivore, keto. The thing I want to touch on is I can create the most perfect diet in the world. But if you can't follow it, then it's not the best diet. And so, kind of when we're talking to general population people and a lot of like your demographic that's going to be listening, focus way less on what's popular at the moment because it's going to cycle in and out. And no matter what your favorite fitness influencers is saying of what works best, the most important thing is creating a diet and a nutritional approach that you can actually maintain. And so if you enjoy like a higher fat approach, like you're like, I'm not that big on carbs, but I do really like my higher fat meats, my avocados, my olive oil. Sure, do a more keto-based approach. If you're like, hey, like I really need carbs. Like I struggle with sugar issues. Like I need to have a high carbohydrate profile to be able to work in foods that I enjoy to stay on my diet. Absolutely. Go with a slightly lower protein, lower fat, higher carb approach because losing body fat really does boil down to calories in and calories out. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because that means like if they're not losing weight, that means they're actually just not in a deficit. We can't violate thermodynamics. Now, hormones are the master key. They definitely make things run smoother. But like I say, we can't violate thermodynamics. It is calories in versus calories out. And one thing that I heard one time that I really like to repeat is that calories will determine your weight, macronutrients will determine how you you look at that weight, and micronutrients will determine how you feel at that weight. Meaning, like, if you just want to lose weight, sure, focus on a calorie restriction. But if you want to focus on losing body fat and changing your composition,
Visceral fat.
then you need a more dialed in approach of actually following a set macronutrient plan, which means your daily target protein, your daily target carbs, your daily target fat are actually mapped out and planned for you based on your activity level, your training style, and your.
Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, right? They're going to watch the show and then they're going to say, well, how do I figure this out?
Sure. So there are some like generic formulas out there that do work. Again, if you don't want to use a coach and you don't want to use an app, it's going to boil down to trial and error. So the way I would suggest them to find out their ideal numbers is you really need to focus on logging your food and being meticulous with logging your food, but don't change your diet to start. Meaning a lot of times when people want to see progress and start a fitness routine, and they start recording their food, they'll actually start eating healthy and then recording that and be like, well, how come I'm not losing any weight? I'm just eating chicken and veggies, fish and rice.
Mhm.
But it's not the truth of what they were eating. So to start your own fitness plan, I would definitely recommend eat 100% normal. And I tell my clients, like, hey, I don't care if it's a pint of ice cream every night, cookies at lunch, Chick-fil-A for breakfast. It's like eat 100% normal because you want to figure out the calorie intake that your body is used to seeing. Because more likely than not, you're either slightly gaining or you're maintaining. If people were already losing weight, then they wouldn't need to try and figure out their approach. So you want to get a really good idea of where your total calories are for the day. And then from there, a very easy formula that you can do. And again, I'm not like a super big formula guy, but if we're just talking to someone like, hey, I just need some guidance of where to start, you can do a pound of protein per pound of, excuse me, a gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then if you're a male, have a baseline of at least 45 grams of fat for hormone production, females 45 to 60 grams of fat. And then your remaining calories can be your carbohydrate. And so let's say, your body is maintaining its weight on 2,000 calories a day. So 1 gram of protein has 4 calories, 1 gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, and 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. And so you can take that math and figure out what you want to do. So if you're a 200-pound person and you want to do a gram of protein per pound of body weight. That'd be 200 grams of protein, 200 times 4, that's 800 calories. So 800 calories of that 2,000 now needs to come from protein, and then figuring out your macronutrients that way, and then be super consistent with those numbers. And I recommend like, hey, find what you were eating, change your macronutrients up, and keep your actual calories the same. And then after a week or two, if you're not seeing progress, then start to adjust from there. And you can adjust in so many different ways. It doesn't just have to be with pulling calories. You can start by adding in daily steps. That's one of the best ways to start losing body fat is by just increasing your activity through steps. That's something that's not stressful on your central nervous system. It doesn't require you any recovery from you. If you're training, 1 to 2 days a week, just bump it up to 3. Whenever we're dealing with people who are not in the contest prep field, because contest prep is a very isolated group of people, and they know that they only have a finite amount of time to get extreme results. And so that's why contest prep is so like outside of the realm of what a normal person should do because it's so extreme. But it's so extreme, it's not maintainable. And we don't want to take an approach that extreme for the general population. And so you want to create a program that can be sustainable for you. So, like I said, if you're only training 1 to 2 times a week, hey, can you realistically train 5 times a week? Probably not. So start with 3 times a week and do that until progress stalls, then bump it up to 4. And give yourself grace and give yourself wiggle room to actually make changes in small increments to lead to the result you want because you don't want to throw the kitchen sink at it when you're starting. Because if you start with, hey, I'm cutting my calories by 500 a day, I'm doing an hour of cardio a day, I'm training 5 days a week, going from doing none of that stuff Like, sure, you may be motivated to do that week one and two, but at some point, your motivation is going to crack and you're going to resort to your old eating habits, your old training habits, and your old output habits. And then you
Mhm.
only had 2 weeks of success, and now you feel like a failure because you weren't able to sustain it. Whereas if you had taken a slower approach to this and been really meticulous with your alterations and how you reduced food and how you added cardio and how you increased your training, you could go on a long run without having any issues with satiety or feeling overly tired and all that stuff. And then you created something sustainable that can become a lifestyle and
There you go.
not have to struggle with yo-yoing, because that's what most people, especially females, really struggle with is the just the constant yo-yoing up and down, up and down. I mean,
Yeah.
almost every woman I've talked to, it's like has said they've struggled with their weight and yo-yo dieting since their teenage years. Like women that come to me, I'm not saying just any woman I've talked to in general, but women
Right.
who come to me for lifestyle fat loss. Um, so such a big thing we have to work on is mindset and understanding like, hey, we are trying to fix this once and for all. And
Yeah.
it took you 30 years to get to this weight or 20 years to get this weight. Don't try and undo 20 years of bad habits in 3 weeks. Like
Exactly.
give
It throws
yourself
your homeostasis off drastically.
and
Yeah.
give yourself time to actually create new sustainable habits.
Let me ask you a question. Between sleep, resistance training, cardiovascular training, nutrition, supplementation, all five of those. For people, depending upon their exercise time, their length, their body build. What do you suggest for people in simplistic manners that they can do simply for all those five things, like supplements, the endocrine system, sleep, because sleep is such a huge factor for so many people. The endocrine system, hormones, huge factor. And a lot of reasons why people they'll have high cortisol levels, especially at night. So what would you tell those people that there could be simple, easy ways for them to start on kind of maintaining their health in a healthy way?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, I'd first like to say there is an order of importance to that stuff, right?
Hmm.
Like there is a pyramid where some things need to be the base and the foundation, and then some things are less important.
Hmm.
The supplement industry would have you believe that supplements are most important, but you can take supplements till you're blue in the face. And listen, this is coming from someone who used to own a supplement company, right?
Uh-huh.
You can take supplements till you're blue in the face, but if your foundation isn't right, you can't out supplement a bad diet. You can't out supplement poor sleep. So I would say like focus on your foundation of making resistance training and sleep your nutrition your biggest tiers. And of those three, I would say nutrition needs to be the biggest base, and sleep, and then resistance training, and then supplementation, excuse me, then cardio, and then supplementation last. Because if you focus on good nutrition, that's going to lead to fat loss. And first, like, and one thing too is a lot of the endocrine issues and the health issues that we see. Resistance training and fat loss reduce all-cause mortality better than any medicine that's ever been made. And there's not a doctor,
Correct.
there's not a competent doctor that will dispute that by any means. No matter how many pills they try and sell you, the best thing you can do for your health and increasing your longevity and your quality of life and reducing all-cause mortality is losing body fat. Okay. And such a good way to do that is through resistance training because one, it does so
Yes.
many things for the endocrine system, but also it does things for improving your bone density. It increases your muscle mass over a long enough time horizon, which increases your metabolic capacity. But also, you can do resistance training in a way to where it actually has a cardiovascular benefit as well. And so you can kind of kill two birds with one stone with that. And so that's why, we place nutritional training above, resistance training above cardio. And so many people, when they
Yes.
start programs, their foundation is cardio. The average American, their foundation is cardio, then it's supplements, and then it's weight training, then it's nutrition, and then it's resistance training. Like the order is
All backwards.
totally
Hmm.
backwards for the modern American.
Hmm.
And so that's
Hmm.
what I would say first and foremost is get your pyramid right. Now, in terms of easy things to do for each of those steps, nutrition is one, utilize foods that you enjoy and use a flexible dieting approach. Meaning, for the average American, sticking to a rigid meal plan like you see in like contest prep, of eating the
Hmm.
same things every day for all meals.
Chicken and rice, stuff
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
it's not going to be sustainable for you because you're going to get tired of it. And so I definitely recommend using what's called responsible flexible dieting. And the reason why I kind of term it like that, as opposed to the adage of if it fits your macros, is I still believe you should have like an 80-20 base of like 80% whole ingredient foods, anti-inflammatory foods, and then
Mhm.
20% fun foods. Because in all honesty, we just have to be realistic with where we're at in the culture. In the
We
culture,
do.
if you tell people like, hey, you got to live on meat, rice and potatoes and veggies the rest of your life, it's just too hyper restrictive for the average American. So it's like, hey,
Mhm.
I would rather my lifestyle clients have an 80-20 approach of where 80% of their food is whole single ingredient food, and then 20% food is, modern Americanized food and ball out because that 20% of your diet coming from fun foods, if you lose body fat, that 20% of fun foods is not going to negate the cascade of health benefits that come from drastic fat loss and increased muscle mass. Okay. So I would say utilize foods you enjoy with a responsible, flexible dining approach that follows that 80-20 rule set and create a meal plan that you can actually stick to. That is the most important thing. For sleep, it is really important that you develop a consistent sleep routine. And I'm even bad about this. It's
Yeah.
tough in this American culture of go, go, go. I've
Mhm.
got to do more. I've got to make more money. I've got to,
Yeah.
we place such a value on performance that it wrecks our identity and our health. And so creating a good sleep routine, stop using things that emit blue light, a certain amount of time before bed. Have a do not disturb on your phone, have blackout curtains, have your room cold. You utilize hot bath or hot shower before, and create a routine that you get into. Now there's some people who are going to be like new moms, and this doesn't apply to.
So,
But if you're steadying your career, having a sleep routine, and then your body will get accustomed to winding down and releasing its own natural sleep hormone, because your body produces its own melatonin,
mhm.
it will get in a routine of sleep and get in. That starts with just the consistency of routine, and you'll notice that you start to get tired around your routine again because you've created that habit.
Well, that's what we do with 2-year-olds, right? And then us
Yeah,
as
yeah.
adults, we just untrain everything good that we originally supplement into our daily lives, including hydration. I see people chronically dehydrated.
Oh,
And
100.
so could you talk to them a little bit about chronic dehydration? It is just a mess with some people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing with being chronically dehydrated is, well, in my opinion, is your kidneys. Okay, so your kidney's primary function is sodium ion balance, meaning if you take in too much sodium, it's going to excrete more. If you don't take in enough, it's going to excrete less. But one thing that people don't think about is that thick blood is harder to filter, and your hydration levels are directly proportionate to your fluid intake. So if you are chronically dehydrated, you are going to have thicker blood over a long enough time horizon. It is going to put more strain on the kidneys, in my opinion. And so I think that because your urine doesn't come from drinking water; it just comes out your bladder. Your urine comes from your
Yeah,
blood. A lot of people don't know
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but your urine comes from your blood, and so like you can kind of tell your quote unquote blood health through like your urine color. Like if you're peeing out
Yeah.
dark brown, it's like, man, like you got some thick blood pumping through you. Um, and so, yeah, for me, hydration plays a really big role. And also, too, is like hydration plays a role in, for those of you who are like really big into like the aesthetic portion of this interview, is like, for the bodybuilders and the super fitness enthusiasts, is like most of your muscle volume is fluid. So if you're chronically dehydrated, you're not going to look as jacked as you could.
No, no.
Being chronically dehydrated, but also too is going to affect all of your organ functions as well. So it just makes sure. And listen, the thing about science, and I love science, but you can find any study to contradict anything. And over a long enough time horizon, they find that about 50% of studies end up being proven just otherwise down the road. And so it's like in this age where there's just
Mhm.
so many studies about everything, it's like stick to the basics of stuff like we really do know. And the reason why I bring that up is because, there's a big debate out there right now of like how much water should you be taking in? Uh,
Yes.
a super easy way to do it, in my opinion, is just do 75% of your body weight in ounces. And so if you're
That's exactly what I tell people.
Yes.
Yes.
If you're 100 pounds, do 75 ounces of water a day, which is like just a little
Mhm.
over 2 liters. It's not a lot. And that, like I said, that's minimum. And if you go over, you're fine. Like you don't have to worry about like water poisoning or anything like that.
Right.
You're not drinking 4 gallons a day as a 100-pound woman. But just as a bare minimum. And people are like, oh, well, does coffee count as water? Yes, you can count your coffee as water. 99.8% of coffee is water. So yes, you can
Yes.
count it as water. But also just drink some normal water too.
Exactly. And a lot of people ask, well, does the type of water you drink really matter? Because, there's people that drink unfiltered tap water, people that drink bottled water, and people go into this whole argument of plastics and this and that. What's
Sure.
your opinion on
So
all
this,
that?
this is so okay. So there's a couple different things. Do plastics and heat over a long period of time emit things and put them in the water that are not good for us? 100%.
Yep.
But also, in the same breath, and this is where, some health nuts are probably going to get upset with me. They analyzed bottled water and tap water, and it's virtually the same thing in most places. Like America is such a blessed country that we have, relatively pure running tap water. And yes, they
Mhm.
put things in the tap water. It's like they've done tests, and there's fluoride and stuff in there. But guess what? All that stuff's in your bottled water as well. So I don't think people get upset with that. Where people are going to get really upset is, people spend so much money on alkaline water and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I hate to break it to people, but your stomach acid is going to change the pH balance of any alkaline water
Yeah.
in as soon as it gets in there. It
Yeah.
is not going to re-alkaline your system. So you paying $5 for a bottle of
Well,
water.
see, this is why I'm trying to dumb myself down during this interview because I have people literally that say these things. They ask me these questions about water. Obviously, you're a science guy, so you've studied this quite extensively. The other thing too is I have people come in, oh, I have no metabolism. I'm like, yes, you do. And so with women and men too, what are some basic exercises that they can implement into their daily routine that is actually going to produce more of a long lasting result, especially for people in chronic pain, people that are looking to tone. You don't have to be overly creative when it comes to some of this stuff. So what's your top five recommendations for men and women?
Sure. Okay, there's a couple points to that question. First, there's no such thing as toning exercises, okay? Especially in the fitness, there's so many myths in the fitness industry that used
Yes.
to sell programs. So it's like, all these, tone up with, this exercise. Being tone is what people refer to as seeing muscle definition. And largely, in part in the fitness industry, they correlate being tone with very high rep, lightweight training to tone the muscle to not get bulky. Um,
Yep.
so, first, it is so hard to get bulky for women. Y'all don't have the hormone profile to build muscle like men do. Uh,
Right.
Lifting heavy is what develops shape and curves, and it's still going to take y'all forever. Putting on new tissue is such a time-intensive process, especially
Mhm.
in an environment that isn't testosterone dominant.
I
Like,
agree.
so being tone is about losing body fat and then developing some muscle. So when you do lose the body fat, that you actually see muscle definition. So, but there's no toning exercise. The best way to get quote unquote tone is to get lean.
Why do you think I brought that up? Because
Yeah.
I loved your bio. Like, let's go into the myths. And I'm like, oh, I've got some good questions.
Yeah, so being tone is really just getting lean and having enough muscle mass to create shape. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, what was the next part of the question? When you said
With
tone, I just hyper focused on it. Oh yeah,
exercises.
exercise selection.
Because everybody is like, well, what should I do every day? And what would benefit me the most?
Yeah. And so in terms of benefiting you the most, do exercises that have the most bang for your buck and get the most recruitment for the least amount of time. And I'm assuming we're talking to people that are on a time crunch, not competitors right now.
Lots,
With
lots.
with competitors, and too with lifestyle clients that have like a little bit more lax schedule, that can train, the 5 days a week. A lot of times I
Mhm.
ask people like, hey, what are the insecurities with your physique that you want to address with this, 12-month program? And so whenever they tell me those things, for ladies, a lot of times it's like glutes, and shoulder,
Yeah,
back of arms. And so
yeah.
we will do a lot of stuff to create hypertrophy or muscle growth in those sectors to create and build shape to change their physique. Okay.
Hmm.
But if we're just talking to like a busy mom that needs to train 3 to 4 times a week, um,
Hmm.
try and stimulate everything twice a week. So like if you can only train 4 times a week, you can do upper lower, and utilize movement patterns that get the most amount of recruitment so you burn the most amount of calories in that training session. Now, isolation exercises are great, but remember they just isolate. And so you're like if I'm doing bicep curls, I am not burning a lot of calories, okay? But
Hmm.
if I'm doing, bilateral dumbbell rows, that also does get some bicep stimulation, but also works the
Yeah,
entirety or most of my back, I'm gonna burn, probably double or triple the calories. And weight training in itself doesn't even burn that many calories in relation to your whole day. Most of your calories are burned through your actual daily movement and through sleep. Like you burn a ton of calories while you sleep, which is why sleep is so one of the reasons why sleep is so important. But majority of your calorie burning is going to be in the 24 hours that you're not in the gym. So that's important to remember. That's why, like they say, you can't
yes.
work a bad diet, because you can go and train, and let's say you have a killer training session, you burn 400 calories, and people can be like, "Oh, my Apple Watch said I burned 1,000 calories." I'm like, "You didn't." Trust me, you did not. You did not burn 1,000 calories working out for an hour. Okay, lifting weights for an hour, texting in between sets. Like, trust me, you didn't.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's why it's like you can't work out for an hour and then eat like an a-hole all day long and be like, oh,
Exactly.
well," I'm like, well, the training stuff isn't working. So focus on things that give you the best bang for your buck and work best for your biomechanics in terms of not aggravating any pre-existing condition or any pain you have. But focus on compound movements in all honesty. They're great, squats, lunges. If your back is able, proper form, deadlifts or RDLs. And deadlifts and squats, and just as a caveat, all the things that not let me rephrase. There is no exercise that is absolutely required for you to develop an amazing physique. People are like, oh, like I can't squat, so I'll never have good legs. You can develop world-class legs on leg press machine, quad
Yeah.
extensions, hamstring curl, and hip thrust. Okay.
Yes.
There is no exercise that is a must do. I said those exercises, in terms of like, hey, what are good exercises to do if you're on a time crunch and that, will give you the most bang for your buck. Those compound movements get the most muscle activation, as opposed to isolation movements because they're compound in nature, but they are not required. And so choose movement patterns that one, give you the best bang for your buck, and and two, complement the ideal physique you're trying to build. Because if you're going to be in the gym training, you just soon do things that work towards the build you eventually want to have one day, you know? And so if I want like really great shoulders, but I'm not doing, lots of side laterals while I'm in the gym, I'm skipping that, to do other stuff. Then it's like, well, I can't be mad that my shoulder development isn't progressing if I'm not doing things that actually benefit the growth that I'm trying to get.
So, what about body weight exercises? What's your take on doing body weight
Yeah,
exercises?
you can get in, look at the military, for example, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, crunches, and running, all
Mhm.
body weight exercises. Now, do they look like bodybuilders? Most of them? No, but are they in good shape and have incredible cardiovascular health and have really good builds? Yes. So body weight exercises are 100% valid. Are they the best for hypertrophy, meaning like muscle development? No, but you can certainly build an amazing natural physique with it. Just with body weight, you don't have that isolation effect, so you can't really sculpt as you would with a gym membership. But you can get in unbelievable shape and have a really good physique with body weight exercises. But being that you don't have the weight to add additional resistance, you're
Mhm.
going to have to do a higher rep range to get the same level of stimulus to promote your body to grow new tissue if you're going to grow, which is why weight training makes resistance training a lot easier because you can have a much higher load to stress the muscle to create that adaptation of growth.
So now for you, for all of your upcoming projects, what are you working on now?
So for me, well, man, I wasn't gonna talk about this until probably next year,
Mhm.
but I'm working on a program that is specifically designed for men. We have financial advisors coming in. I've already had a counselor film 12 episodes. I
Mhm.
really want to help men get emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially on the right path. And so I'm
It's
working on
wonderful.
developing a all-inclusive course that's specifically going to be isolated towards men.
Okay. And so when I interview you next year, you can kind of let us know a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully we'll launch in January. And then two, one day I'd love to bring the supplement company back. But we'll see. That one's in God, everything's in God's hands, but that one's like really in God's hands.
well, and you've had a really amazing career. And for a lot of people that aren't familiar with Wayne Norton, what was his background specifically?
Yeah, so he got his PhD in nutritional sciences, and so he did his PhD in leucine metabolism, and leucine's like the primary amino acid responsible for stimulating muscle growth. And
Mhm.
some really interesting research coming out on plant protein versus animal protein, and really
Yes.
showing that like soy-based protein that is high in leucine content had pretty identical effects as meat. And so it's like you can still grow muscle on a plant-based diet. You just need the right plants. Because a lot of times with plant protein, the protein is bound up in the fiber, so it's harder to extrapolate all of it through the digestive system. But you don't have to worry about that with soy protein. And so, like if you are a vegan out there or a vegetarian, you just have to be a little bit smarter about how you're going about getting your protein, but you can 100% still bodybuild and build muscle on a plant-based diet. But anyway, yeah, Lane, and then he's huge in the industry. I mean, I'm sure he has millions of followers, and yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful. For that season of life where he really believed in me and put me on, and I mean it's just the biggest endorsement of my career. And then I was blessed to be endorsed by some other really big prep coaches in the industry as well. But it was a super fun season of life where my life just revolved around that. And I'm going on 37 now, and so I've diversified my work portfolio a little bit. And
Mhm.
so it's been really fun, and I'm really excited for this next season to really have the freedom to work with the people that I just want to work with in the where I feel like God's leading me.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I can't wait to have you back. You're full of knowledge. You were able to answer a lot of people's questions that they're really kind of sitting on their couch right now, kind of wondering where do I start? How am I going to achieve this? And it's kind of like you said. There's certain things that people over obsess on, and especially with the time allotment that they have, and they're not focused generally on the very specifics that are going to get them the biggest results the quickest and be able to maintain it because that's the question is sustainability for a lot of people, a lot of us. So that's
100.
cool. That's great. And if people are trying to find you, how are they going to find you?
Absolutely. I'm most active on Instagram. So
Mhm.
C620 Nutrition. And then if they would like to work with me, go to go.c620nutrition.com and just click apply now. And then we'll start working together and see if we're a good fit.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. Nice to
A
meet you,
pleasure. Thank
Paula.
you. I
All
appreciate
right.
you
Take care. Have a great day. Bye
too.
bye.
Bye bye.